All right, let's talk about the Minnesota Vikings, who what a crazy calendar year they've had. They were one of the most interesting teams in last offseason as they let Danielle Hunter and Kirk Cousins walk. They traded up in the draft to get JJ McCarthy and Dallas Turner. A lot of people thought they were going to struggle right out of the gate. You look at the talent, especially on the defense. It's like, yeah, there's not a lot here. This might be a bit of an issue. They ultimately, with Sam Darnold, are the second best record in the NFC, ultimately lose in round one of the playoffs, though. So let's talk about where they're at. How can they improve? Because what a weird situation they're in. They're clearly an effective team, but they've also had multiple seasons where they've won 13 or more games and not won a playoff game. So how do you maybe go from being a good regular season team to a team that can compete for the Lombardi Trophy? So first, to talk about what they can do from here, we have to talk about how much resources they currently have. $55 million in cap space and $101 million in 2026, so they can kick the can down the road a little bit if they want to. They're good cap space wise. And another thing is they don't have a ton of upcoming guys that they drafted who they have to pay. There's a couple. The issue, though, is they have a lot of just guys in general they are going to have to either pay or replace. So this is their upcoming list of free agents. The number next to them is how many millions of dollars that they're projected to get in free agency. Sam Darnold being the key one, which there was a point when I really feel like if they went on a deep playoff run, you just would have had to pay Sam Darnold. And the best thing that could have happened last year was if Sam Darnold was great and they won a Super Bowl. Kind of the next best thing was him to show that maybe he's not the guy and let you know it, right? The last thing you would have wanted is if he played well in that Rams game and they still lost, that puts you in a much tougher discussion. $41 million projected for Sam Darnold. I just can't imagine the Vikings give him that contract. The Vikings have always kind of been since they hired a more analytically inclined GM, a team that is not going to just throw money at the quarterback position, really. They did extend Cousins, but ultimately let Cousins walk. To me, I think that they would probably do something similar. Let Sam Darnold walk, maybe franchise tag him, but they drafted J.J. McCarthy for a reason, traded up to draft him for a reason. I think they let Darnold go. Cam Robinson, another guy who he was essentially a rental because they had an offensive lineman go down. So he's kind of one of those guys who always gets paid a lot of money, even though, he's one of those guys that PFF hates, but the NFL loves, so I don't know what's going on there. But he's projected for $18 million. I think they let him walk as well. So, okay, you still got $50 million to sign these other guys, and you can. Aaron Jones, Cameron Bynum, Byron Murphy Jr., Harrison Smith, and Stephon Gilmore. I wouldn't be shocked if they re-sign all those guys. Aaron Jones might go, but I bet the other four probably do get brought back into the building to some capacity. They could also clear up a little bit of money if they wanted to. A couple names that could be options are guys like Josh Oliver and Josh Metellus. Now, again, these are both quality players. Neither one are stars. You could get rid of them. Maybe you do something where you trade one of them for a fourth-round pick or something, and they might need to make a trade for draft picks because, quite frankly, they don't have very many picks. These are the draft picks they have. They have 1 first, 2 fifths, and a 7th. That is all they currently have because, remember, they traded up a ton to get Dallas Turner and to get J.J. McCarthy. This is now when they're kind of having to deal with that. And so, that's quite frankly something I don't like about this Vikings team right now. I don't like the fact that they're not going to be picking much. They do have a first-round pick. It's not a very good first-round pick because the downside of having such a good record is if you get knocked out round one, well, now you're the last team picking that made the playoffs that got knocked out round one. So that's not ideal. It's just not ideal. But if you look at where they graded according to PFF in each positional category, top 10 in passing, top 5 in receiving, the rest of the offense was okay, pass blocking being 18th, run blocking being 16th, and running being 19th. Keep in mind, they could get healthier at the offensive line positions, specifically at the tackle positions. When they played that Rams game, both of their starting tackles were injured. One started the game injured. Darisaw was hurt for most of the year. Their other offensive tackle got banged up during that game. So just getting those guys healthy, this could be a top 10 pass blocking unit again. And that makes it for a really good situation for a young quarterback. J.J. McCarthy did get a year to learn. I think that's what they do. The defense is weird because, okay, they graded 4th in terms of run defense. Pass rush and coverage was middle of the road, but Brian Flores does such a good job at scheming these guys up and doing a great job at this, regardless of what the talent looks like on paper, still finding a way to make the defense work. You just hope he doesn't have to play Matthew Stafford or coach against Matthew Stafford, I should say, who kind of has that figured out. And in fact, the way I kind of view this defense, though, is I've always viewed it as I think that Flores does a great job at fooling opposing quarterbacks and getting them off their game. However, when you go up against a Matthew Stafford, who's kind of seen it all, isn't going to get fooled, isn't going to put the ball in a bad spot. What that essentially does, though, is you kind of can't do this blitzing stuff, and you have to just drop back and play coverage. But this team couldn't really play coverage. And when they tried that against the Rams, they struggled with that as well. And one thing that I think we should talk about more when it comes to football is, can you win in different ways? The reason why the Eagles were so good and won a Super Bowl was they could essentially beat you no matter what you were good at. They had an answer for it. You know, the Chiefs, they didn't have an answer for some of this stuff, and then that's why they got exposed in the Super Bowl, right? For the Vikings, they couldn't beat you if you can beat the blitz, and they didn't have another answer. So it might be a situation where, even though it works in the regular season, when it comes to the playoffs, and the Daniel Jones game, that was just a weird game. I wouldn't pay too much attention there. But as a whole, this might be why they sometimes don't look as good in the big moments. Also, Sam Darnold playing his 2 worst games of the season in the 2 most important games of the season. It didn't help there either. So, okay, long story short, what do the Minnesota Vikings do? Where do you go from here? Again, the 2 options are you keep Darnold and you say, you know what, we were pretty good last year. Let's try and run it back. Keep as much of the roster there as possible. It's not a horrible idea, but I think that the Vikings are a smart enough team to say, you know, like I brought up Daniel Jones, so I'll make that example again. The Giants win a playoff game with Daniel Jones and say, well, let's keep this going. Don't want to mess with what's working. When in reality, it wasn't really a great roster and kind of won a lot of close games and was a little bit fluky to get to where they were at. I think that the Vikings can recognize where they are, which is, well, Darnold is a good quarterback. He's maybe not the whole reason this team won as many games as they did. And if you replace him, sure, you might not be getting as good a quarterback as what you got last year right away with J.J. McCarthy, but there is the upside. And the other thing is, you're going to still get 3 years of essentially a rookie deal with J.J. McCarthy and a 5th-year option, whereas if you pay Darnold, you're losing that. So it's not necessarily Darnold versus McCarthy, it's Darnold versus McCarthy and $41 million. The way to view it is like, would you rather have Sam Darnold or would you rather have J.J. McCarthy, Byron Murphy Jr., Cameron Bynum, and Harrison Smith? It's like, okay, well, I'd probably rather have the second one, and I think the Vikings will do that. But yeah, interesting to see what they do. Very fascinating offseason ahead of them, but those are my thoughts. What are yours? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you, and of course, as always, thanks for watching.